What if Yellowstone erupts? The truth about a supervolcano disaster. Imagine waking up to the news. Yellowstone Supervolcano has erupted. A giant mushroom cloud of ash rises into the sky. The ground shakes violently. Within hours, entire cities are buried under a blanket of volcanic debris. Would this be the end of the United States? How many people would die? How far would the destruction spread? Let's find out. How big would the eruption be? First, let's talk size. The last Yellowstone supereruption, 640,000 years ago, spewed 1,000 cubic kilometers of volcanic material. That's 2,500 times bigger than Mount St. Helens 1980 eruption. Enough ash to bury the entire United Kingdom in 1 meter, 3 feet, of volcanic debris. An explosion so powerful it would wipe out everything within hundreds of miles. But how would it impact humans, animals, and the planet? Immediate effects, first 24 hours. 1. Blast zone. Total destruction. Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. Within a 50-mile, 80-kilometer radius, everything would be obliterated instantly. Towns like Jackson, Cody, and West Yellowstone would be completely wiped off the map. Anyone caught in this zone would not survive. It would be like being inside a nuclear explosion. Temperatures would reach thousands of degrees, turning trees, buildings, and even humans into ash. 2. Superheated ash cloud, pyroclastic flows. A mix of lava, ash, and gas would race across the land at 300 miles per hour, 480 kilometers per hour, faster than a jet plane. These pyroclastic flows would burn and suffocate everything in their path. It could spread over 100 miles, 160 kilometers, from the volcano. The next few days, the ashfall disaster. One of the worst effects wouldn't be lava, but ash, and lots of it. Everything within 500 miles, 800 kilometers, would be covered in ash. Thickest ash, 10 plus feet or 3 plus meters. Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, completely buried. Several feet of ash. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah. A few inches of ash, most of the US and Canada. Even places like Europe and Asia would get light ashfall over time. How does ash kill? Volcanic ash isn't like campfire ashes. It's tiny, razor-sharp glass particles. It destroys lungs. People and animals breathing it would suffer internal bleeding. Collapses buildings. The weight of the ash would cause roofs to cave in. Blocks sunlight, turning day into permanent darkness for weeks or even months. How many people would die? It's hard to predict exact numbers, but scientists estimate 90,000 people could die instantly from pyroclastic flows and the explosion. Millions more could die from suffocation, collapsed buildings, and starvation. Total casualties, likely tens of millions worldwide due to the long-term effects. This would be one of the deadliest disasters in human history. Long-term consequences, months to years after the eruption. 1. Global climate change, volcanic winter. The explosion would release hundreds of millions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. This gas would mix with water in the air, creating a giant cloud that blocks sunlight. Temperatures worldwide would drop by 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, 9 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit. This mini ice age could last 5 to 10 years, making winters longer and summers shorter. 2. Mass starvation and food shortages. Without sunlight, crops would fail. Wheat, corn, rice, and vegetables would stop growing. The US is one of the world's largest food suppliers. Its destruction would cause a global food crisis. Billions of people could face starvation due to lack of food. 3. Water contamination and poisoning ash would pollute rivers and lakes, making water toxic to drink. Heavy metals like fluoride and arsenic in the ash could poison water supplies. Marine life and fish populations would die off massively. 4. Animal and plant extinctions. Most animals in North America would die from starvation, suffocation, or exposure. Many plants and trees would be buried under ash and struggle to regrow. The entire ecosystem would take centuries to recover. Would it be the end of the USA? Not completely, but it would change the country forever. The central US would be unlivable for years. Millions of Americans would be forced to move to Canada, Mexico, or overseas. The US government would likely collapse due to the scale of the disaster. Other countries would also suffer as the world economy would crash. However, humans are resilient. Some people would survive, mostly those far away from the ash zones. Over decades or centuries, the land would slowly recover. How likely is this to happen? Not very likely. Scientists say Yellowstone erupts roughly every 600,000 to 800,000 years. It's been 640,000 years since the last eruption, but that doesn't mean it's overdue. Right now, there are no signs that Yellowstone is preparing to erupt. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, monitors Yellowstone 24/7 and sees no major threats. So while it's fun and terrifying to think about, you don't need to worry about Yellowstone erupting anytime soon.